out of the NBA. Bulls head coach Billy Donovan is stepping down after 6 seasons in Chicago. Donovan was given the option to return next season with sweeping changes coming to the Bulls front office, but ultimately decided to move on from Chicago. In 6 years with the Bulls, Donovan made the playoffs just once, which was back in 2022, where he failed to get out of the first round that year in the playoffs. Chicago is now the 3rd NBA team with a head coach opening alongside the Pelicans and Bucks as we take a look at that tenure of Billy D in Chicago. Only one winning season, that one playoff appearance, 226 and 256 over his 6 seasons with Chicago. Our very own Ashley Nicole Moss here with us now as we dive further into the breaking news with Billy D.
Yeah.
And this feels like it was a story that we were hearing almost every single year with Chicago. Will Billy D stay? Will he leave? Now we see he's leaving on his own terms, not deciding to come back. What's your first reaction to that news?
It's not too surprising. I think the surprising thing here is that he's leaving on his own terms. Usually when we hear something like this, it's because the coach has underperformed or hasn't performed to the liking of the front office. But the Bulls made it clear that they wanted Billy Donovan back and to return as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls while they try to figure out what this next iteration of the team looks like. But if you kind of look at his history as a coach in the NBA, the same thing kind of happened with him in OKC. He was a coach that really had no interest in leading a long-term rebuild, which if you're Billy Donovan, you might be kicking yourself right now because you see what the Oklahoma City Thunder have become and what they will continue to become. It was also reported that Sam Presti at the time could not really give Billy Donovan a clear picture, clarity on what the team's future direction would be. So he wasn't somebody who wanted to trust the process, if you will. And when you think about the Chicago Bulls, I mean, their last playoff, you see it here, was 2021 when they were the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Ever since then, though, they've really struggled to find relevancy in the East. Ever since the play-in was added in 2020, they've been a play-in team minus that 1 year that they were in the playoffs. So that also is an organization that's been struggling to kind of figure out what that next iteration looks like, what the future looks like. And Billy Donovan just seems like the type of coach who only wants to put so much into something that he feels doesn't have a future before he ultimately decides to move on.
Bulls went 31 and 51 this past season, which is good for 12th in the East. Obviously, they did not make the play-in this year. You look at that roster in Chicago, Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, Isaac Okoro, Matas Buzelis. Do you like what they have moving forward for pieces to start a rebuild, or even what does Chicago look like moving forward with whoever they might target?
Luckily for Chicago, they're in a very desirable market, right? Chicago is a dope city, great food city, great lifestyle city, and they do have the history of winning. Obviously, Michael Jordan, the most famous Chicago Bull that there ever was. They've been trying to find or harness at least some of that, right? I don't know if the pieces that they have are ultimately the pieces that we'll see when they figure out what that next chapter looks like. But I do think that they're good kind of middle of the road pieces. But again, it shouldn't be difficult to build a winning team in Chicago. This is not some of the other markets in the NBA where nobody wants to go there. And, I was watching the Jailblazers documentary a few nights ago with my dad, and they were talking about how Portland, it was so difficult for them to build a team because nobody wanted to go to Portland. That's not an issue in Chicago. I think that, right now, Chicago doesn't have enough to be a desirable team for a big free agent to be interested in going to. But I think that if they're able to do kind of like what the Knicks were able to do, if they were able to change the narrative that surrounds the Chicago Bulls right now and make it so where it looks like they're at least mediocre. Right now, they're bad. You want to show that you can have pieces that can help you win. You just need that big piece to take you over there and to be a real winner in the Eastern Conference. If they're able to do that and build somewhat of a mediocre team that a big free agent says, there's promise here, I can make the situation work, they'll be in a good situation. They're not there right now, and they haven't been there for a few seasons.
So who do you like as a potential head coach to slide in there with the Bulls?
Ooh. It depends. Look, there's going to be some vacancies, I believe, after the postseason is over. You know, we talked about your Orlando Magic, you know, off camera. I do think, though, that Mosley, I know you hate when I say this, I do think that Mosley can save his job if they're able to take down the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. If not, if that series goes the way that a lot of people expect it to go and the Detroit Pistons are able to come out victorious, you can expect Mosley to probably be the domino that falls. If you listen to all the rumors and the things that have been circulating in the media, he's kind of already lost that locker room. There's been a lot of contention, but winning changes everything. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Mosley leave Orlando, go to Chicago and try to get a restart there. We saw it with J.B. Bickerstaff when he left Cleveland and then went to Detroit and kind of got a revival. If you're a head coach who's willing to kind of stick through the process of the rebuild, sometimes you come out on the winning side of that. So I wouldn't be surprised in that situation. Also, we got to look at the college landscape. There are some college coaches that may be interested in getting their foot wet in the NBA or maybe getting a second opportunity in the NBA. So there's a few things going out there in the water. I think it depends also on what the front office can promise the Chicago Bulls are going to do in terms of building a team.
Yeah, so we look towards Billy Donovan now, who still has interest in coaching, according to our Matt Norlander. He's 60 years old. A chance maybe for this to really go full circle if the Magic job becomes open. And I'm just saying if. But, of course, Billy Donovan took that Magic job years ago, ended up not going and returning back to Florida before going to OKC. What do you think ends up happening for Billy D? Does he take a year off and go college? Does he come back and look for an NBA job? Does he like the Pelicans or Bucks?
He's definitely not going to the Pelicans. Too much work. If the Chicago Bulls were a team that was just not good enough for him, Pelicans are kind of a disaster as well. Like, no disrespect, there's a lot going on there. The Bucks, you have the chance to potentially maybe coach Giannis. We don't know what's going to happen with him. I think he wants to go someplace where there's not too much work to build a team up. There's already a team in existence. He just has to get them over the hump. And if you ask me of all the teams in the NBA, which are the best fit, again, we are assuming that Orlando doesn't win this series. If it ultimately is the case and Mosley is no longer the head coach, that would be the best fit for him, because if you think about it, they are a team that's kind of stuck in mediocrity. They're not a bad team. They're not an exceptionally good team. They're just trying to get over that hump. And if you're a head coach who doesn't necessarily want to be part of a rebuild, but doesn't mind helping a team get over the hump, that's the perfect situation for him. I think the other two teams are just, there's too much question. There's too much possibility. More than likely, Milwaukee's headed for a rebuild if Giannis leaves, like we expect him to. And then with Zion and the situation in New Orleans, yeah, you have some pieces, but Zion being just the wild card that he is, it's just a big taking for any head coach to just have a player that you can't rely on. So I definitely think Orlando would be an interesting fit for him.
Yeah, I would maybe be excited for that. We'll see how that all plays out. 55-27, the best year for Billy Donovan as a head coach. That was his first year with the Oklahoma City Thunder. We will be right back and continue this conversation about Billy Donovan, who is stepping down as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. He is moving on to where? Who knows? But it does seem that he still wants to continue coaching, according to our Matt Norlander. Keep it locked right here on HQ. We'll be back here after the break with some more on Billy Donovan.